To the two of you with a British prism, let's first speak of Mr. Corbyn. We covered that last week. Is it simple, John, to say that Corbyn is the same as Le Pen, is the same as what we observe in the United States?
I think a lot of Corbyn is about anger. If you look at all the young people who rushed out to vote Corbyn, even if some of them knew that he's slightly mad, they still thought he's genuine. And it's some of the same approach that people see when they listen to Donald Trump, is they think that Donald Trump, even when he's being rude, is that he's speaking his mind. He's telling it like what it is.
Exactly.
And you see that with Le Pen, you see it with Trump.
The authenticity question, this is where it's at. Adrian, what should these leaders do? They have a golden opportunity, particularly leaders on the left right now, the anti-austerity leaders. What should they do? None of them seem to be coming up with a platform that's actually resonating policy-wise.
Well, someone like Corbyn really wants to reinvent the 1970s, which I don't think is the best way of going in the age of the internet. I don't think Corbyn is going to become a significant leader of Britain. He's not going to become Prime Minister. I think a much more interesting thing that's going on is what's happening in Spain at the moment with Podemos. I think Podemos has a real chance of winning the election in December.
Right.
And they really are hardline, very disciplined leftists, and that will be a real challenge.
And they have the distraction over the weekend of the Catalonia referendum
again
as well. Francine, I was taken this week or late last week by the drama on your House of Commons as we saw well-dressed, what we would call Wall Streeters, dark suits and ties, and there was the tweed one looking disheveled and rumpled. I mean, it was a stark visual contrast.
It is, and it's a visual contrast that we're also seeing in France, Tom, with Marine Le Pen, that, tries to roll up her sleeves, being one of the people, of course, to the extreme right and not the extreme left, like we've seen here in the UK. John, when you look at politics around the world, in Europe, when you look at Donald Trump and you wonder whether he's stoppable or not, are we losing moderate politicians? And is it just a short phase, or is there actually a worry that with the refugee crisis, with inequality widening, we'll see more extreme politicians around the world?
Well, what's interesting is there was a good piece by Tony Blair, of all people, a couple of weeks ago in The Guardian, where he made the point that it's really odd, moderate politicians, when they stand in front of these people and say, no, don't vote for them, they have no progress really at the moment. They have no traction. And what's been happening so far is that when it actually comes to the real polls, no one's gone for them. But you've had Syriza in Greece, you've got Podemos in Spain, you've got the hint of something. And actually the way you describe Marine Le Pen is very true. My parents-in-law used to live in the very rural France. The lady at Chaumont who used to sell me my newspaper, she looked, dressed and sounded like Marine Le Pen. And she associates with the heart of France rather than the elite. In Paris.
The two of you, and I'd be remiss if I not bring this up, Adrian and John, wrote a terrific book called God is Back, and you talked about the acids of modernity. And then here we have the Pope defeating the modernity in his trip here, his trip to Cuba, and such. What do you mean, Adrian, by the acids of modernity?
The classic view of modernity is that it destroys faith, it destroys religion, that you all become secular. That's the acids of modernity. Reason destroys faith. And what we argued in that book is reason doesn't destroy faith. Quite often modernity, technological innovation, creates a desire for faith, for some reassurance in a very disrupted world.
We see, John, with the Book of Common Prayer coming out of the English experience, all of the turmoil of 1928 in America, 1968, and then the 79 redo. What's the next redo within this Pope for Christianity? What do you see with God is Back, whether Muslim, Jewish, or Christianity? What's the next shift?
Well, I think they're in different phases. I think the Muslim world is still in something much more similar to the era of the Book of Common Prayer when it was first invented. You see exactly the same thing happening in the Muslim world, or somewhat similar to what happened during the great wars of religion in Europe, when actually nation-states began to evolve, partly because religion was tearing things apart.
Well, go ahead, Vanya.
We saw yesterday in the Bloomberg poll that people are generally very unhappy with the political system in the United States. We see that often. But you say they don't need to be. There is a better way. What is that?
I think what's interesting is that for all the despair about politics, you have to imagine in the end, and that was the point of our book on the Fourth Revolution in government, people in the end will start to change government. it seems impossible for me to imagine, you've got Google in the headlines, that the same revolutions that have swept through the private sector won't happen in the public sector. And the other thing which happens is competition. The reason why the West got ahead of China was because we competed, because France competed with Britain, competed with Germany. We kept on pushing each other forward, even creating welfare states, partly in response to the rise of Germany. The West has always been really good at government. Now it faces China, which is really trying to take it on in Germany.
That gets us right to our theme. And, of course, the pageantry we'll see this morning.